able to see a screen. Oh, they got their own screens.
They do, but when you plug in there, they'll be able to see.
So I'm going to do it right here? Perfect.
You can do it there. No, actually you can't. You can do it from this side. I don't think that HDMI over there works.
I don't think so. I
You can
think
do it
you
from
either
here
have to
or
plug
I don't mind
in.
standing up. It's fine.
You either have to plug in here or over here.
It is. I don't have anything memorized. I'm going to have to look at my notes anyway. Yeah, and I'm not going to bore everybody with ultra details on the specific. I'm really going to talk about the kind of intent and the kind of the history and kind of give people a broader picture of what. There's the HDMI.
That's
All right.
And then once we're ready, Nikisha will put your thing on the screen. And
Okay, let me function.
good to go. Let's put Andy on the workshop first, and then that way he can today. Ooh, yeah.
All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the City of Alpharetta's Design Review Board Workshop. Today is Friday, August 18th, 2023. Welcome, good morning. How's everybody doing this morning? All right. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Brett and let Brett run through our applications that we'll hear at our public hearing starting at 9 o'clock. So, Brett, the show is yours.
Everybody, this morning we're going to have a little, in the workshop, we'll have a little discussion on the historic downtown, not necessarily the code, the design guidelines of that. Andy Anderson, if you guys haven't met him, is our city contracted historic expert. So I'm sure that most of you have seen comments from Andy and different things that we've brought along, or I've said, hey, we passed this through Andy and everything was great, or whatever. So this is Andy Anderson. I'll let him give his credentials and where he's from, but he's just going to give us a little quick overview, and then we'll go into the other applications that we have today.
All right,
Awesome.
quick question. Are there any changes to the downtown design guidelines? Are there changes here, or is this just a refresher on the existing guidelines?
It is a refresher, however, we are going to be making some changes, and those changes, I believe, are sort of reflected in what he's gonna do today.
Okay.
But we'll bring to you guys, it's more just making that design guide that you had meet up with the code. And then Andy, when we met with him, he felt like that design guide needed some fluffing up,
Okay,
Yeah.
just to make it a little easier.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Andy?
All right, so yeah, I know several of you, Frank and Richard. The rest of you are new to me. I'm Andy Anderson. I'm with Trainer HL Architects, and contrary to what Britt said, I'm not an expert in historic styles, but I am an architect, and I'm passionate about historical and traditional architecture. I've been working in Alpharetta for close to almost 30 years now. We did our first building in Alpharetta in '94, I want to say. And I live here in Alpharetta, so I'm real passionate about architecture here in Atlanta. I'm sorry, in Alpharetta.
Andy, excuse me, just a second. We're trying to get Eric's monitor turned on. Do you know where the switch is? Who's our?
So while he's doing that, and so a couple of years ago, when the city put out the RFQ or RFP for a new downtown architect consultant, we were excited for the opportunity to apply that, and fortunately we got that role. And so I've been working a lot with Michael and Kathy and Brett in looking at a lot of the new projects in downtown. And basically my guide to this is this Alpharetta Downtown Design Guidelines, which you are familiar with, and the approved styles in downtown. That, coupled with my own experience and knowledge of historical and traditional architecture, has kind of informed how I have reviewed these projects. Are you all seeing the PowerPoint yet? How do we do that?
Yes, we're at least on our monitors.
I'm still not.
And what I'm going to do is what you'll see here is a list of all of the styles that are contained within this guideline. And there is one addition which I've added that I want to discuss and share with you. It's not technically an approved style, but in the last several years, I've seen, especially with the advent of Voisey, which some of you are familiar with, there's been a huge number of projects that have been submitted and built in what we would call the arts and crafts style, the Edwardian late 19th century style. So I've included examples of that in here as well because I want to make sure you guys are familiar with that style. And I will also, another caveat is, most of the styles that we're going to talk about prior to the Civil War, we don't really have any extant examples of original buildings in those styles. We see buildings that are done in that style, but unless you're going to Charleston, Savannah, Boston, more older cities, you're not going to see Georgian and Federal buildings. Now, when Greek Revival came around, which as many of you are familiar with the antebellum South, you see a lot of buildings in the Greek Revival style, and then there's the neoclassical style. So the first 4 styles in the list would be termed true classical styles, in the Greek and Roman classical tradition. All the styles after that really come around in the Victorian era, and also a lot of the sort of the revivals, the picturesque style. So from stick, Queen Anne shingle on down, those are really more of the kind of revival styles and Victorian styles. And then the last one is the mercantile mill style, which is not technically a style, it's more of a building type. And so I'll talk a little bit about that once we get to that one. This first slide just shows you a little bit, and what's interesting is in the design guidelines, there's really no reference to the time period, which is not necessarily critical to the review, but I thought it was important for you all to understand sort of the historical kind of understand the context with those styles. So I'll start with Georgian. And what I'm going to do, and what you'll see here is, for each of these styles, I've listed categories, and some of these are somewhat consistent with the categories of the description in the guidelines, but what I try to do is break out the style in the different components or parts of the buildings and then describe them, those aspects of the project given this style. And just so you know, Brett, I want to make this PDF available to you all so you guys can have it as a reference, because my intention is not to read through every single one of these. It's more to give you kind of a general idea of what those, and really the pictures are where the 1,000 words are worth, right? And in reference to what Brett was saying earlier, I think one of the main ways that this design guidelines can be improved upon is provide a lot more pictorial examples, especially when it comes to commercial architecture, because the thumbnail references in the guidelines are from a guide to, and I can't even remember the name of the book. I should, but from McAllister. In fact, I'll look that up real quick. And in her book and her history is all about residential, and so it's all residential examples. Yes, a field guide to American houses by Virginia McAllister. And so what I've also done here is in the first line, as I said, commercial examples, either yes or no. So what that means is that either the details or the elements of this style can be applied to commercial buildings, and you would see examples like that. The ones that say no, which tend to be more the Victorian, more picturesque styles, you really don't see an example of a commercial building like in the stick style or the Queen Anne style. But that being said, that's why I have that category. So we'll start with Georgian. Georgian architecture is really the first formal style in the American colonies. It's named after King George the First through the Third, who was the ruler of England at the time this style was popular. So it really is the style of the first colonial, the main colonial buildings in America. And you can see here, these are some examples of that style. It's very formal, symmetrical. It's kind of what we all think of when we think of very formal. It's what colonial Williamsburg would be. Georgian. You've got your formal Roman orders for the front pedimented porches and things like that. And if I use any terms that you guys are not clear on, I'll be glad to clarify those. But that's sort of where this style comes in. The next style is Federal Adam, which is really the first truly American style. So Federal, kind of right after the United States was founded formally with the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, And under, George Washington, the new president, there was a push to kind of adapt these classical styles more to a true American style. And that's where the federal style, named after the federal government, a lot of the early federal buildings, the Boston State House and a couple other buildings like that. But it's very similar to Georgian. I think to the layperson, you'd be hard pressed, even for me, hard pressed to see a lot of differences, but you'll see certain things like Palladian windows, the columns and other details are more attenuated, which means they're more slender or more subdued, and so it's a slight shift from that more English style of Georgian. And then we move on to Greek Revival, which is really kind of the early 1800s, 1830s up to the Civil War. And this was where there was a pushback to more Greek, truly Greek style. So you'll see more of a Greek temple form, large two-story porches with the Greek style orders, which would be Ionic, Corinthian, and the Greek Doric. And these are some examples, some of which are kind of what you would think of as your typical antebellum type homes, but then also you can see there are some commercial buildings or larger sort of urban buildings that were built during that time period that have some of those same characteristics. From there, there was a revival in the late 1700s to the 1830s of bringing back some of those, during the time of the Greek Revival and some of those other styles. There was a revival of what we call neoclassical, and that's really started with Thomas Jefferson at Monticello and other things like that. So you'll see that the neoclassical really has elements of all of the previous classical styles, whether they're Roman or Greek in origin, but they're usually very formal, very symmetrical. In fact, most of the buildings like the White House and other, the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. are all kind of considered the neoclassical. So it's really that push in the very early 1800s, a lot of the government and federal buildings were done in what we'd call a neoclassical style. And moving on from neoclassical, then we kind of hit post-Civil War, and we move into what is broadly considered the Victorian era, under Queen Victoria. So it's really sort of the mid-1800s through the late 1800s. And the first style is the stick style, and the terminology for stick comes from, you can literally see the boards, vertical and diagonal and horizontal boards, which were kind of used to express the structural frame. There was new technologies in using sawn lumber and dimensional lumber for building houses, and so that those new technologies at this time were reflected in the architecture. And you can see a lot of those characteristics here in the stick style. While many of you would still recognize this is what would be called Victorian, this is specifically to the stick style. And again, that was from the 1860s, 1890s. Moving on from the stick style is the Queen Anne style, which is also a late Victorian style. When you think of the painted ladies in San Francisco, polychrome, which means multiple colors and varieties of shapes of shingles and different colors and materials, somewhat even exotic looking, very exuberant. And you can see even here some of the more urban infill type buildings were built during that time and had some of those elements. Although those buildings don't really look like what you would consider a traditional residential Queen Anne building, they do have some of those elements. You also see round conical towers and things like that. Moving on from Queen Anne, we move into the shingle style, which was a very specific style that kind of grew out in the Northeast. In New England and in New York, really defined by the use of cedar shingles. And it was more of an overall form where the shingles of the roof and the shingles of the wall kind of blend together. It's a very picturesque and asymmetrical composition, but you can see some examples here of that. This does have some of the elements you would see maybe from the Tudor and from the earlier Victorian era, but it was kind of a whole new use of just kind of sculpting buildings with, fairly not as much ornamentation and not as much color, but more interesting in terms of the variations in forms. Moving on to what we call folk Victorian, which is really not necessarily a style, but it's really a term that applies to sort of the lay person or the less formal types of buildings during the Victorian era. And I think that's where you see a lot of the older farmhouses that you see here in Alpharetta from the late 1800s are kind of would be classified in this style. So they have elements of the Victorian with the what you might call gingerbread or turned spindles and columns, but they're much more humble in scale, in form, in massing. Usually pretty simple, boxy forms with wraparound porches and things like that. But I think you can start to recognize a lot of the early 1900, late 1800 buildings that you would see in this area would fall into this category, the folk Victorian. Then there's another style here called Romanesque, which was really started by a single architect, Louis Sullivan, H.H. Richardson. Sullivan was a later adapter of this, but it's going back to a pre-Roman style, a little bit more massive, heavier stone. So it's really a Romanesque revival, truly, but it's called Richardsonian Romanesque. It's very, very popular in the late 1800s and early 1900s. I'm sure many of you have seen examples of this type of building, but you can see they're almost exclusively all heavy stone, often brown stone, half-round arches, Roman arches, you would say, and then you have a lot of these arch-type windows and triples with heavy stone columns between them. So again, it's kind of a revival of pre-Roman precedents there, but that's the Romanesque. Then we move on to the Italianate, which was a sort of a revival in the late 1800s of classical Mediterranean Italian examples. A lot of them are really have a lot of these cupolas. You'll see this cupola form with the double or triple arched windows at the top. So that's very indicative of the style. Kind of really wide, deep cornices and eaves with decorative brackets supporting the roof. You'll see those characteristics a lot in Italianate. But all kinds of material forms. You see stucco, hard coat stucco done to look like stone. You'll see siding. You'll see stone itself and other types of materials, brick. You also see these sort of segmented arch windows. Tudor eclectic is another style. That's really a revival. You know, I read a lot when soldiers were coming back from World War I. They had really experienced a lot of that picturesque vernacular architecture in England and France, and it sort of led to this revival of this Tudor style, which is really more of an Elizabethan. You know, it's kind of the early 16th century English form, which we're all very familiar with the half timbering, with the stucco or brick infill, and brick and stucco and stone. And that's the Tudor eclectic. And then the style that I mentioned earlier, the arts and crafts, this style really kind of came about in the late 1800s in the Edwardian era when King Edward was king. After Victoria, it was kind of like the build up to World War I when the British Empire was at its height, and there was sort of a revival of more earlier Gothic and craft type styles. And so there was this sort of a medieval revival, which was termed the English Arts and Crafts Movement, which wasn't just architecture, it was the arts and decorative arts and other things. But it's kind of characterized by what you would recognize as very similar in those Tudor or Gothic forms, but much more subdued in its ornamentation, its materiality. So stone and stucco, very minimal eaves, almost no overhang on the roof, but you see different materials of stone, stucco, even shingles. But this style has become very popular with, there's a lot of well-known architects in America, and especially in the South, that have sort of really revived this style here in the late, in the 20s here, in the 10s, last decade. You see more and more of that. So I think it's a style that we see here in Alpharetta that people want to do, and I think although it's not a style that's listed in the guidelines, I think we should consider adding this one too. And I think Voisey's a good example of that. I mean, Voisey is literally named after C.F. Voisey, who was one of the premier architects during this movement in England. In fact, this house on the upper right-hand corner here is one example of his designs, and so I think that's a really neat historical style that's really kind of come around in Alpharetta. And finally, we'll talk about the Mercantile Mill, which is really describing a lot of the brick industrial warehouse mill type buildings you see in the late 19th century and early 20th century. And I think the reason why this style is included is because it lends itself well to larger commercial type buildings, whether they're office buildings or other types of buildings, because of the simplicity of the massing, sort of the scale of them. It fits sort of an urban setting. But these are a series of photographs and images that kind of show a variety of buildings in that era. None of them are really particularly of a style, but you'll see there's a certain kind of authenticity that you'll see with these images, and I think that's really where we've tried to steer the submittals for Mercantile Mill is to because of this, the ornamentation, the detailing is fairly simple. It's important to make those details authentic, especially the windows. You'll see a lot of large divided light steel or metal windows, usually kind of have a decorative brick cornice, really no additional trim or ornamentation. And finally, I added some images of some buildings, and this is just a handful of the buildings that we would see here in Alpharetta currently that sort of have that Mercantile Mill style. There's the Chick-fil-A at Avalon. This upper right is an office building here in City Center. I don't know the name of it's a multi-tenant building, obviously. And then you see Jekyll Brewing, and then Never Enough Time, which all have that sort of style. And they really lend themselves to as kind of a storefront or shop front. So I know I kind of went through that fairly quickly, and I thought at this time if you guys had any questions or comments or thoughts, I'm happy to answer those. Or yes.
You can help me with this question that I haven't found a good answer to. Sometimes people will create, perhaps this is arts and crafts or Tudor eclectic, they create a wall, maybe it's a brick wall, where they'll apply stone into that wall as if it's a part of the structure, which to me almost seems like it's just pretentious and unnecessary. Where does that come from?
Well, so it's my experience. A lot of traditional architecture would be called vernacular. Vernacular just means that you use what's available locally to build things. And a lot of times when you're building, for efficiency, and another word I like to use is economy. Vernacular buildings are about economy. In other words, they're built in a way that's the easiest and the most available. Now, with modern technology, we don't need to use those techniques because we have more efficient ways. So we often try to apply older techniques. But in the old days, if they had brick or if they had large stones available, they might use those to infill the walls. Now, really going back in the old formal days, brick was not really considered a finished material. When in the Georgian period and even earlier, when you had brick buildings, they would often clad them in stucco and score them to make them look like large monumental cut stone. So it was a convenient, durable building material, but it wasn't thought of as like a decorative material, brick itself. So as time progressed in America, we've I guess all decided that brick was fine as a finished material, and it was great. And so I think mixing stone in with brick requires a real skill and a real understanding of true vernacular examples. And so what I always go back to is show me a historic example of what you're trying to emulate. And if you're going to do that, you need to do it very authentically and very accurately. And it requires a certain amount of study and knowledge. So you're right. There's a term, and I had to look this up because I didn't know what it meant. And I was reading in a book, and I don't remember. I looked for it because I wanted to give you guys that quote, but I couldn't find where I'd read it, but it's a term called verisimilitude. It's a very complex word, but what it means is that when you look at something, and it doesn't apply just to architecture, it applies to anything, it has a certain authentic reality to it. You know, when you look at a really old building in Williamsburg, you're never under an illusion that that was built 10 years ago. Like, you look at it and you go, man, I know this building is really old because I can see it in the material and the texture and things like that. So if you want to, and obviously we're not going to be so dictatorial because we don't want new buildings to look like a museum piece. But that being said, if you're going to build in a historic style, you should be knowledgeable of that style, and the devil's in the details, right? It's you can't just apply a few pieces of a style and call it that style. You have to really understand it and you know, and use those materials and methods authentically. If that so, but I agree with you. Like, there's a building. There's one, it's right there on North Point Parkway across from, it's that whole development right across from Avalon. It has the little stone. It looks like somebody shot stone into a brick wall with a candy, kind of these little chunks. It's like a pastiche, you know. It's not an authentic, you know, and you wouldn't want to do that just for pure decorative sake, you know. It's like having shutters on a building that are screwed to the wall without hinges and shutter docks, because shutters are merely a tool for protecting windows from weather. It's not a decorative element. It looks decorative and it looks nice, and we appreciate it for that, but that's not what its purpose is. So architecture, when you put something on a building, it should reflect a purpose. It shouldn't just be pure decoration, if that makes sense.
Andy, thank you very much. This is
You're
a good refresher. Eric, does this bring back some early American architecture 101 classes that we had to take?
Oh, are you an architect, Jason?
So,
Where did you go to school?
Syracuse.
Okay, awesome.
but I think what we find is in as we look at buildings on our side is it's not necessarily one particular, you know, or the other type thing. You look at Never Enough Time. That's almost got a little bit of Romanesque
It does.
versus
It does.
the mill
Yeah.
versus this and that. So people are putting together some of these different styles that we're trying to figure out, and some mesh well together,
Yeah.
and others don't mesh so well together.
It's true, and you know, very little of what you would, unless it's a very formal, very important building, most places in the country, they're not going to be an authentic style. But I think if you look at what you would call traditional downtown buildings, like in the early 20th century, late 19th century, I think you're not going to necessarily say, okay, that's definitely this style, but there's elements from those styles put together. And ultimately, good architecture comes down to scale, proportion, composition. It's not necessarily about the style, it's about the design, because, you know, the style is really more of a palette, if you will. It's how you put those parts together and paint the picture. You know, you can hand, you know, Michelangelo a palette, and he can paint the Sistine Chapel, hand it to me, and you're not going to be very impressed with my painting skills. We're working with the same materials, and so yeah. Ultimately, and that's what I see my role as really is making sure that what we're reviewing fits within the sort of the range of the styles that we think. But it's really more about reviewing the design. Really is the main, because that's where true beauty comes. Because you can see beautiful examples in any style, but you can see really ugly examples in any style. So it's really about design more than it's about the style, in my opinion.
Yes. So what are the next steps then? What's happening next, Brett, as far as?
So, we're gonna be taking, I think Michael's worked on some documents, we'll take those to council and get those, approved through them. I'm not sure that Andy's seen our
I have
final yet.
no, I haven't seen anything. This is all I'm done for that. Yeah.
So Michael and I just worked on it a little bit yesterday, so, it'll be a couple months, but there won't be any huge changes, more just,
Kind of tweaks?
clearing up that document
Okay.
with what's currently in the code, because the code's pretty good.
Yeah, and I will say that's really the best part of this code is where it talks about the different aspects. You know, streetscape, signage, just, you know, entrances, facade design. You know, that's where the details and how you design a good building. Really, in other words, if you're following these guidelines in all of these different categories, you're going to have a pretty good looking building. And ultimately, whatever style it is really secondary to that. So that's why I think this is a very good set of design guidelines. And I think the pictures that show those different design aspects are really good as well. We just think the styles themselves aren't really well documented, because a lot of the architects that do projects in Alpharetta are not traditional classical architects. They don't have that experience or that knowledge, so they need a little bit more. As an architect, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and just a verbal description doesn't really give you enough, I think, information on how to execute that. So,
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody. All right, I'll let y'all get to your business.
Okay, Brett.
All right, so first application that we've got is sort of a redo. We looked at landscape at the Roberts building. That's the old varsity site. We looked at it once, primarily the streetscape. We didn't really have the
Brett, we're not seeing anything on our monitors. Are you? Oh, there we go. All right, got the thumbs up. Now we are. Good, thank you.
We didn't really have all the details, and then if you remember, that's the building that when we initially looked at it, the West Side Parkway side of the building was the loading side, and we wanted them to turn that building. So they turned the building around, which then related the landscape around differently and stuff. So, and now also they added the details in this pocket park here that's an amenity for their office space. So we'll talk through the landscaping a little bit on that, and that will finish up that project.
And that'll be an application that Eric has to excuse himself.
Eric will need to
okay.
excuse himself, as
All right.
we had looked at it partially originally, yes. Mr. LeCain, I'm not sure if you were here or not. However, since you're an alternate, you're okay. That it's in a different realm. So.
I guess on this one, the challenge on the streetscape from a tree standpoint is there's power lines there, right?
The challenge is going to be those. They'll be getting an LDP, so David will look along West Side Parkway there and just make sure that those specific types. When him and I met, and I think this is the updated plan. So
Yeah, I mean, they just have crepe myrtles along the street, and I saw that and wonder why just crepe myrtles, and then realized there's power
it's
lines.
overhead power lines. So there's a specific type of crepe myrtle and different things that Georgia Power will accept. So basically, what we do there is the best we can get.
The best you can do. Right?
The best we can get.
Yeah.
So. All right. And then we're going to go. Sorry, getting dressed here real quick. Okay. Then we're going to go to Kimblebridge condos. I think this is probably the easiest way to show this plan. So Kimblebridge condos, there's a small piece of property at West Side and Kimblebridge Road. So plan north here would be the racetrack. Left-hand side across West Side Parkway would be the police department. Straight across Kimblebridge Road, we just did that 6-story office building over there. It's got the parking lot out at the street, but the building's back there. So this, I believe, is an 8-unit condo building that'll sit on that. The parcel just to the north there, the little, that's a city piece of property right there, a little remnant piece from right away and different things like that. We got a small piece right across Kimblebridge Road as well that's a city piece. Here's some sightline studies. from both West Side, which is significantly lower than Kimball Bridge. So the building sits kind of mid of the two roads there. Little architectural site plan here. So we've got a pool that faces Kimball Bridge Road to the screen right. Little motor court there with some parking. And then their main entrance for the building is on the front there. They have a lobby and an elevator area there. Pedestrian paths for them around the building to get to the back for the fire pit and patio area and things as amenity for the residents.
Brett, was there any thought of trying to line up their entrance drive with the drive that's across Kimball Bridge there?
There
Or-
is some talk.
Okay.
And I think Steve was in on that to talk.
Okay,
So I'll let
very
him
good.
more address that. You know, that's an LDP thing, but yeah, there was some discussions about that. So here we've got the first rendering of the front of the building. You can see the drive-under garage here to this area here. All right, this is to the right, there's a drive-under garage there. Circular drive with some parking. Pool is to the left. So they've got some nice details in the building. Adding in the columns and the iron details of the patio areas for the individual units, and then the railing detail around the top, I think adds a lot. One thing that I think is missing in this photo, that when you look through your packet, I think you probably saw the details of a chimney, and those chimneys had some really great details on them, and I encouraged the architect to bring that forward. That was a really great detail that I felt like needed to come through. This would be the right-hand side of the building, so I would guess probably 4 of the units here. Probably 5, one on top, 2 on the middle 2 floors there, or first and second floor. Little overhead rendering there. And then we've got some 2D flats. So this is the front. This is the entryway. You can see the brick chimneys in this detail come out here. I told him it wasn't necessary to fix all of his renderings and things like that, just to bring them forward. So I don't know what you guys think, but I think from that other picture, from this one, I think the chimneys add a nice little rooftop detail there.
They could even be a little higher.
They could be a little more prominent. This would be the rear, which would face West Side Parkway and their fire pit and play yard or activity area that you saw on the plan there, which is actually, I'll let Steve talk about that again, but I think that's their underground detention area back there. Left side of the building.
Okay, so we'll be looking at site plan, landscaping,
Site plan, landscape, and.
exterior elevations and,
Exterior elevations, materials, yep.
okay, very
Just do a
good.
full review.
All right, any questions for Brett this morning? All right, there being none, let's adjourn the workshop session this morning. Go get our coffee cups refilled, and let's get back here in about 5 minutes to get started with our public hearing. Good, thank you.
do you want to come up and get your laptop hooked up and ready to go? Or, because you'll be first.
Yeah, I don't think I'm looking up. I think you're bringing a flash drive perhaps. Keisha, is that down there? I guess, okay, so, for Eric, we're just gonna move.
Oh, you're
This is not.
you're not doing, I didn't think they were coming. They are? Okay. Yeah, I thought Bradley said that they were letting you handle it, but I don't remember for sure. Well, you guys are on first.
Yeah, I can present mine,
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing is the landscape. Everything else of theirs is done.
okay, so the building is.
Building's done, yep, yep, so it's just landscape.
Sure. Yeah, we're just gonna have to move some down.
Okay. And leave Richard over here,
Uh,
and this one isn't on either, so we'll leave Richard here.
oh, ours. I'm like, this is on. Yeah, yes,
Okay, we'll leave him there, Eric
yeah,
over here.
this is an electrical issue, that's not.
Okay, thanks, James.
So, here's the other one.
You have your stuff on your computer?
I do, I've never done this, so do we use PDF or do I use?
You can display whatever's on your thing there, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do not, however, have any of the.
You don't have
hardware
HDMI? You have USB-C on there?
No. Oh, yes, that I do, sorry.
Sorry, it's not you. Or we could say that your electric personality blew out the stuff beside you, so, yeah. It's too powerful. Okay, we're ready to go.
All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the City of Alpharetta's Design Review Board public hearing. Today is Friday, August 18th, 2023. Good morning, welcome. Thank you for being here this morning. Okay, our first order of business this morning is call to order, which we're doing, and we have roll call. So we have, we're missing a few members. Pat Corkle and Holly Palmer are not feeling well, so they're out. But we do have a new member this morning, so I want to welcome Eric Rowan to us this morning. Got sworn in last week, I believe, last Monday. So welcome. Don't be bashful. Eric is an architect, as we heard, went to Syracuse University and has lived actually here in Alpharetta for a number of years and been raising his family here. So Eric, welcome. He's a member of the Alpharetta Rotary Club as well. So from time to time, he may be just buzzing in just in time for our workshop sessions, coming back from breakfast, from the Rotary breakfast. But Eric, welcome. Thank you for being with us this morning. But we do have enough for a quorum this morning, and we are a little spread out because some of our monitors apparently are not working this morning, so that's why we're in different places than normal. But okay, just a gentle reminder for those that have electronic devices or cell phones, if you'll silence those for us, please. Appreciate that. And then let's stand. We'll face the flag behind me and have the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Let's see. Do we have any items from staff this morning? Anything from staff?
Just wanted to welcome give his own little spiel on his history and what he's currently doing. And then, think we have anything else? I've gotten next month's packets in. I think we have 4 or 5 signs that will be coming forward and 1 building. So won't be too bad next month either.
Okay, good.
And I wanted to say we want to wish Brett Schroeder a happy birthday today.
Ah, happy birthday. Very good. All right. We needed those donuts from last meeting, this meeting, right? No, probably not, with candles on them. Very good. Happy birthday, Brett. All right. Any items from board members this morning? Any other birthdays this morning? All good. Okay, very good. All right. Next item on our agenda is to approve the Design Review Board meeting minutes of June 16th, 2023. I know between Frank and I had a few corrections that we sent to Tracy. She has made those corrections and incorporated those and sent those back out to us. Anything else on those meeting minutes? All right. Somebody want to make a motion to approve?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the June 16th, 2023 Design Review Board.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Swing, a second by Ms. Rhodes. Any comments or questions about the motion on the floor? There being none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the City of Alpharetta's Design Review Board meeting minutes of June 16th, 2023, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All opposed? No opposition. Minutes are approved 6-0. All right, very good. Thank you for that. Second. All right. Our first applicant this morning is Roberts Properties. You're here. You're already ready to go. All right, good morning. Make sure you speak into the microphone. Okay. Introduce yourself again to us, and then give us an overview of what we're looking at in your application this morning. And before you start, Eric, I'm going to officially recuse you from this application since you didn't participate. We heard from this applicant in February of this year. So, Eric, you got a little free time this morning. We'll call you back in just a few minutes. So. Okay, the floor is yours.
All right, I am Michael Bozeman. I am with Manley Land Design. We are the landscape architects for this site. We didn't really have a whole lot of comments the last time we were here because there was an issue with the building and which way it was facing, which obviously has been taken care of. So the landscape didn't change a whole lot. We did have to flip it, obviously. Last time, the amenity area, or also known as the pocket park, wasn't complete. It was really just a placeholder. Now we have that planned out, as you can see here. All the tables and the trash cans and stuff I can show you on a different sheet, but they haven't really been anchored down. The client is thinking more of a black finish on those. Tables are roughly 42 inches. The bistro sets are like 30 inches. And then in the center, you'll notice there is a fountain. I'll also show you that on a separate sheet. It's more of a fountain / art feature. One of the comments that was made was the frontage along West Side Parkway, and there weren't any trees. There still isn't any trees on that area due to the 100-foot transition line there. However, Georgian Power does they allow a certain height to happen. So we have proposed putting in a crepe myrtle tree that will not exceed 15 feet. We have emailed or tried to contact Georgia Power. We still haven't heard back, but we're confident that they'll be satisfied with this. As far as the overall landscape, we are meeting code. There is a certain percentage of natives that we have to do. We are exceeding that. We're also exceeding the quantities. Most of the sizes that we're proposing are above what's required to give it a more full, complete look. On the, let's see, there on the south side of that building is where the bike parking and the bike repair station will be located. We wanted to place it on this side just so that that pocket park has a nicer look, if you will. We're trying to remove all the maples from the, well, we're not trying, we did remove all the maples from the interior parking islands just simply because they don't do well in areas such as that. So we've replaced those with oaks and elms as well. So this is pretty much the landscape plan. If you have any questions?
Michael, just remind us, where is the underground stormwater detention? Is that happening on the other side of the parking, other side of the loading dock? Where those pavers are?
Yeah, I want to say it's where the pavers are.
Okay.
We weren't responsible for that scope, so I don't want to say one thing and it not be true, but that would be my best guess.
Okay. Ah, very good, thank you. And then I know, looking at the far row of parking spaces on plan left, I know we usually don't go but like 9 spaces before we have a tree island, and it looks like we exceeded that over there.
So a lot of the curbing is not being disturbed, so the limits are less than what we're showing. They're trying to maintain most of that curb line minus around the building area.
But it seems like, so are all these tree islands then,
Existing,
they're all existing?
yes, sir.
I mean, I know that used to be the old varsity, junior varsity, or varsity. Okay. All right, and so now let's look at the pocket park. Can you show us a little bit more detail about the pocket park? I think you said you had some more information about that.
Well, just last time it was simply clouded. It wasn't designed. We had little information on how to lay it out. So since that last meeting, we had multiple meetings on what their desires were, as well as fulfilling a lot of the city requirements.
Okay. So for instance, looking at that pocket park now, we've got a fountain in the center, some sort of square fountain area. But the furniture, for instance, the bistro tables and things have not, and the patio, they've not been picked out.
Not entirely, no. The style, again, I can show you the second sheet, shows what they're thinking, but no, sir, they haven't been really.
Do you have anything you could kind of show us?
Sure.
And even the fountain, just to
Sure.
understand the fountain, is it stepped, is it tiered, is it, you know?
Okay. So as you can see, this is the actual fountain that's being looked at. This is the one item that has been picked.
Okay. So that will be the fountain?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
that's been determined,
I know,
okay.
so the water just flows off the top and down the sides.
Essentially, it's a little bubbler, and so it just spills over. And we've made sure that the base of this will capture the entire splash, so there's no, overflow into the walking space.
What's the dimensions? How tall is that?
Yeah, I think once it's on top of its pedestal within the fountain, it's going to be roughly 9 feet. So it's pretty tall.
It works nicely that the park is on the north side of the building, so people will have a place to sit in the shade.
Right.
Okay, and then looking at the furniture and everything, that looks like, I mean, you've picked something out. It seems like it's pretty gelled on what they want to do.
These are just inspirational. This was
Well-
a fun topic. So we did our best to interpret what they were thinking, but again, it's Mr. Roberts' wife will be the one that will decide on those features. And
Tell Sarah we like what you're showing us.
okay,
Tell Charlie's wife we like what you're showing us right now.
all right.
I mean, I think what we're going to have to do is approve this. I mean, I think these are appropriate, this furniture. Now, if they get something that's a little more inspirational, I'm not sure, you know, what your definition of inspirational is
Right.
versus ours type thing. So, but I think this is very.
I don't
traditional, very good,
think they're going too far from this. This
very
is-
durable and,
Right.
you know, type thing. So
Well,
let's,
maybe what we could do is approve this or something substantially similar with
Correct.
final approval by
Yeah,
staff.
yeah,
So
makes sense.
if it's close, then fine. If
Yep.
it deviates a lot, then you'll have to come back.
Correct, right.
and then, all right, very good. And then if going back, if Georgia Power finally gets back in touch with you along the eastern or west side parkway there and says no, or whatever they determine, I think you'll have to come back. I mean,
Okay.
do crepe myrtles, is there a species of crepe myrtles that only get to 15 feet?
That, the
'Cause I'm
ones that
thinking
we
of-
have put there, exactly that.
Okay, I'm thinking of the ones that, or at least the one I have in my yard, is probably a little bit more than 15 feet. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Natchez actually, yeah, those, I had those in there, and then because of that reason, we changed
Okay.
them over, so.
But what are the chances that Georgia Power will say, you know, you can't put those in there, or,
I don't see it, I see them being okay with
Okay.
this. Yeah.
because those are pretty tall lines up there, if I recall.
They are.
I mean,
They're extremely tall.
they seem to be way up in the air, so, okay. Okay, any other comments or questions?
Yeah,
about-
just on the hardscape, what are the hardscape materials?
So the tiles themselves will be a 24-inch by 24-inch paver. And I can go back to the plan. The colors are going to be that buff color, as you see, more textured, more like that upper picture, but the style or the layout of that bottom picture, if you will.
So I'm guessing you don't have a sample of the paver.
I
that
do
you're gonna
not. That's, so the one that I had proposed, they didn't want to commit to that.
Okay,
So again, this will be, it's going to be in this family, but it's not decided on yet.
Will it be stone or just concrete?
I'm going with a 24-inch by 24-inch stone paver as my, but yeah.
well, again, I think I like that.
I think we all do we like that, so I think we're kind of in the same boat as the furniture and everything else.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so the question is kind of the lower one seems to be more of a flat as opposed to a dimensional as far as the,
Yeah, I think what he's saying is
Example.
that texture, but that shape, I think is what he's saying.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
24 by 24, but textured like the one on the top.
texture like the tiles, correct.
Kind of marbled a little bit, or
Yeah.
whatever the, okay.
I do have a couple of items for Michael. Michael, regarding your use of the oak leaf hydrangea on that north side, those two groupings might get too much sun coming from the south, because they look like it's going to be a while before they would get enough shade under those trees, unless those, because I have not verified the size of, well, it looks like you might want to use something in place of those two groupings of 3 oak leaf.
So the idea is the building is going to be pretty high. It's a bit above 3 stories.
Yeah.
So we're thinking that the building's going to cast enough shadow to help protect those.
Okay.
So that's the thought.
Well, that's reasonable, and that can be evaluated after a couple of years. The other thought I had, and this is subjective, as a lot of things are about planting design, there are a lot of narrow ribbons of materials around the building. And it's good to see that you have a platform of sod there on 3 sides. It also looks as if those ribbons of sod are going to be relatively narrow, more than they could be, to give it more substance there, because in a couple of places, they're not going to be even 5 feet wide at the narrowest point. And some of that sod area, and this is subjective again, and I'm not saying that this is a condition for acceptance here, but it would work nicely if there was more substantial sod there, and you wouldn't even have to put all of the jasmine with that whole length that you show it. You could have the jasmine on one end or the other and bring more sod in. But the planting plan is a good, strong approach, and there's no reason for you to change anything there.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. Michael, is the site irrigated?
This will be irrigated.
Okay, good.
There's another section in the parking lot between the islands that shows pavement type B.
Yes.
What is pavement type B?
So this is, this was done by the engineer. However, we're going to be responsible for picking out or calling out the square footage and whatnot. But this has something to do with the.
Yeah, they're pervious pavers,
Pervious,
but do
yeah.
you know what they look like? What?
So those are going to be more of that asphalt color, graphite, like a graphite color. I can't say that the herringbone pattern there is going to be the pattern, but it will be a graphite that will blend with the asphalt as close as possible anyway.
I'm trying to go back to our February Design Review Board package and see if it's identified, Frank, in either the civil or the site plan.
Yeah, while you're looking for that, opposite the Pocket Park on the other side of the building, there's also pavers. It looks like those are the same pavers as the Pocket Park. 'Cause
That's
they're
correct.
Labeled pavement type A, right?
Correct.
Okay. Is there any other hardscape that's not asphalt or concrete then besides what we've discussed?
No, there is not. It'll be just those 2 paver areas, as you said, on
Okay.
the south side of the building and the north side of the building, and then a paver for the pervious section in the parking there.
All right. And I don't, are there any retaining walls or walls of any kind?
There is, but they're all existing. Actually,
Okay.
it's one continuous one. It goes
So
around the whole,
Just the one that's around the
That's
street?
correct.
Around the street.
yes.
So I mean, I think the plantings look fine. We're missing detail on hardscape and furniture and things like that. I'm gonna ask Brett, are you comfortable if we approve with substantially similar to what was shown today with final approval by staff?
Yeah, I mean, it's really private. I mean, it's not public.
It's not gonna be,
It's not a public spot,
it's not gonna be
so-
terribly seen from the road or anything,
Yeah,
right? I get it. That's why I think I'm comfortable just saying it's substantially similar, but give you one more chance to look at it. They could just submit it to you.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay.
Frank, I didn't see an example of the pervious pavers in our February package, but I do know we approved the site plan, so.
Yeah, okay,
I
so
think-
that we'll just include that in the review by staff. All right.
Okay,
Nobody's
anything,
got anything else? I'm ready to.
anything else? Yeah, let's we're ready for a motion.
All right, Mr. Chairman, regarding DRB 230034 Roberts Properties, motion to approve landscape, hardscape, furniture, and fountain as presented today with the following conditions. The Pocket Park furniture will be as presented or substantially similar with final approval by staff. hardscape pavers will be substantially similar to the paver style presented, the 24 by 24, but textured with final approval by staff. And the pervious pavers will be submitted to staff for final approval. And a motion.
A second.
Okay, we have lots of seconds.
Yep.
Let's see, I'll give Mr. Owens the credit for the second on this one. Although, Mr. LeCain, you were right there too, so you get half of that. You co-seconds.
Co-second.
No, we'll give it. All right. Any comments or questions about the motion on the floor? There being none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All opposed? No opposition. Motion passes 5-0-1, since Eric has been recused from this application. So, all right, very good, Michael. Thank you for your time this morning. Appreciate it. Okay, next applicant is Kimball Bridge Condominiums. Come on up, or come on down, please. Eric, welcome back.
I wasn't out there interjecting on the Northwind stuff. I worked on that 30 years ago, so remembered. I can't deny the reality.
All right, Mr. Rowe, looks like you're getting things set up, so don't forget to introduce yourself this morning, speak into the microphone, and then give us an overview of what we have in our packet, or what you're going to present to us today, please.
Sure thing. Good morning. Steve Rowe with AEC, 50 Warm Springs Circle, Roswell. I'm here presenting Kimball Bridge Condominiums that's located near the interchange of Westside Parkway and Kimball Bridge Road. I'm not sure if you're seeing what I'm seeing on my screen or not.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So the site is located, there's an existing residential development to the south. The public safety building is to the west, and then the new office that Greenstone just did is to the east, with Racetrack to the north. Here's the site more specifically.
And we understand that little extra piece, that little kind of triangular piece is owned by the city of Alpharetta.
That's correct. And we actually did try to purchase that from the city, but the city did need that for a possible future roundabout in that area, I was told. So that's why we did make attempts to bring that into our parcel.
Very good. All right.
I'm going to start with the site plan. We're looking to do an 8-unit condominium that's kind of nestled on a 1-acre parcel, 1.008 acres. The site slopes from Kimball Bridge Road down towards West Side. Resident parking will be under the building, so there's a little ramp that goes down that will take you to the underside, and then up at the main entry level, you'll have some guest parking with handicap parking, as well as a plaza area and the pool. We segregated the amenity spaces to where we would have the more active uses to the front of the building, mainly because it was kind of set in a little bit of a bowl, because the slope coming down from Kimball Bridge will help protect it from Kimball Bridge. The building help protects from West Side, and we're kind of setting downward in grade. As if we moved it to the back, it would be more out into the open and a little bit more visible. The back side, we've got the patio, the more passive amenities, the patio, the plaza, the fire pit, and then a lawn area for kids that may, visit to come play, or croquet, cornhole, just about anything you can do in a more open space. One thing I wanted to point out with this is that the site was specifically worked to try and save as many trees as possible. We've saved a significant amount of trees for a 1-acre site. I think we're about 25% of the site is left untouched, with existing trees to remain and be worked around and worked within the actual landscape architecture. The underground detention, so we can achieve our runoff reduction and water quality, will be under the lawn area, and everything will be piped directly to that through the parking garage and underneath the building.
So that's the hatched, kind of the
Yes.
long.
It's
linear.
right now we've planned for a pipe manifold system with a stone gallery underneath to be able to allow for the infiltration.
Okay.
But we did it in the lawn area so that it could be easily maintained and easily accessed if we need to get there. I went ahead and showed this without the existing trees, but you still are not going to see the rooftop units from Kimball Bridge or West Side. And if I added in the existing trees, it would even bit more screen what's happening here. So I just wanted to show that even with no trees, we're still doing an adequate job of screening the rooftop appurtenances.
So Steve, tell us, I see West Side Parkway is about 1,100, give or take.
Yep.
What's the finished floor elevation or the first floor elevation of the condominium? And then it looks like it's 1,130 at.
We are finished floor at 1123.5 with the basement garage level at 12.
Okay. Thank you.
At this point, I can answer any questions you might have on the site plan, or I can just move right into the landscape architecture.
Let's go back to the site a minute and see if
got it.
anybody has any questions. Maybe I'll start off. Any dumpster? I mean, how is trash and recycling?
Since there's only 8 units, we're going to have probably a trash room on the first floor, and we'll have a corral that will come out with a porter to a trash truck as it arrives. We didn't really have a good place for a dumpster on this, so we tried to work with an alternate way to handle trash removal.
So you think that porter or whatever, that they will pull into the kind of?
We think the trash truck will pull into the upper floor, and then the cart will be rolled out to it, emptied in, and
Probably
then the trash
like
truck
once a
leaves.
week or something
Yeah.
like that, okay. All right, very good. And then again, if you're a resident and you're parking your car, you're going underneath the building.
Yes, sir.
And is that like a gated?
It's got a
gated-
garage door with
Okay.
an activated
Okay.
remote.
So if you're a visitor, you're coming, you're probably parking in that surface area.
Right, and there'll probably be a call box because there is going to be excess parking under the building for guests or long-term guests.
If
that can
somebody's
use
coming
that.
to stay for the weekend or
Right.
something, they don't want to, okay.
Right.
All right. Talk to us a little bit about maybe the different paved areas and how you see that.
Right now, we've got the pool deck area is just your traditional concrete,
Okay.
possibly some unique scoring and such. We do have colored and colored and scored concrete at the front door. And what we did is, because of the way this worked out, it was an easier access to get from the street down. So we came straight across from the parking. So we pushed the parking back, had the access behind the parking, which worked out better for handicap access and direct access into the building. And it gave us a place to do that that's a little bit more robust and gave more turnaround area for actual cars in that location.
Okay, so what's shown as being hatched, for instance,
Yes.
in the front of the building is the scored.
Scored and colored concrete, which
okay.
we haven't decided colors yet. The architect and I still have to get together on what that is.
Okay, very good. And then also, it looks like you've got a fountain in the front.
Yes.
Fire
Again,
pit.
we haven't detailed that out yet. We just know that we wanted a water feature as you're pulling in as a focal eye candy coming in.
Okay. All right, and then in the, I guess, the rear of the building or the West Side Parkway side,
Mm-hmm.
you've got the underground stormwater management system. Tell us what's on top of that.
Right now, it's just lawn area.
It's just lawn,
Just
so
lawn.
so it drains through the grass.
Actually, it's everything. Most everything is piped into it from underground, so you're really not even going to know it's there except by a manhole or two that may have to come through the lawn area itself. So the surface drainage that hits the lawn area, yes, that will drain straight through to it because it is a perforated pipe system, so it'll
Okay.
grab it. But the majority of the roof drainage, the parking lot drainage, the plaza area drainage is going to be directly piped into that system underground.
And is that all, I have to go look at the elevations, is that all an internal drainage system?
Yes.
Or is it like a gutter and downspout?
I believe we're doing internal roof drainage.
Okay. All right. I'm just kind of going through site
Sure.
things. Any other kind of civil? Eric, yes?
Yeah, the paving at the front, at the entrance
Yes.
versus the walkway behind the parking, are you going to differentiate between colors or anything so that people are aware that it's a designated driving area versus the front?
Yeah, we'll have a band that'll come around to designate the area right in front of the front door, and then there'll be some detectable warnings to show you that that's an actual walkway coming across.
Okay, and then it sounded like you heard my question during the workshop session.
Yes.
If you couldn't purchase that piece of property to probably try to line up the
We would love.
intersection.
Everything in my gut tells me to line those entrances up. I just don't have the land to do it. If there's a way that we can work with the city on an easement or, a partial purchase to be able to get that to line up, I'm definitely willing and open to do that.
I just know I've been through there a couple
Yeah.
times, and if you're even trying to make a left turn coming out of Quick Trip there or that area, it's kind of dicey because it's on a curve and people are coming down the hill,
Right.
and then now you're adding another element of.
The good news is it's only 8 units. So
I
it's
guess
not
that's
it's not a
true. I guess
significant amount
that's true.
of volume coming in and out. But I agree, I would love to line up those entrances if possible.
Okay.
But not knowing what the city has plans for, it's hard to work that
okay.
out.
Okay, any other site civil questions? All right, if you want to jump over to the landscaping.
Sure. This plan just shows you in green all the trees that are existing that we're going to be working around and saving. As you can see, some are off-site, but most are on-site trees that we're able to preserve. And then this is our plantings that we're trying to work within that. So we have plenty of trees that are working along the front. So we're going to be almost meeting our streetscape requirement with existing trees preserved. But we are adding some Princeton elms to that streetscape along the frontage. We're using willow oaks along West Side Parkway, since there's already willow oaks along that drive going that way. We're trying to be consistent with the streetscape that's there. We're using some black gums along the sides as our deciduous material, and then screening that area from West Side, we've got some cryptomerias, some magnolias, Brody cedars, so various screening material. Along the buildings themselves and around the terrace levels of the back, we're layering in a various amount of shrub material, and we've done some plant palette imagery to kind of show you. So our Princeton elm, the black gums, most people are familiar with. We're using a rising sun redbud, which is kind of a neat type redbud that has some yellow, and it has that color throughout the growing season. And then on the bottom side, you can see the various screen material that we're using to help screen us from West Side, which is the heavier traveled road of that. Here's some of our shrub material. We've got Sasanko camellias, oak leaf hydrangeas, sunshine ligustrums to kind of add some color interest, ruby fringe flower, and various other evergreens and semi-evergreen plant material. And then we also augmented with some natural grasses, some pink muley grass, some forester's reed grass, Stella de Auras, maiden grass, as well as a mix of black-eyed Susans and echinacea. And then here's just a kind of a more detailed view of the landscape plan.
So everything should get pretty good sun except that section on the north end of the building.
The north and the south are going to be shaded pretty well by the existing tree cover that's there.
Oh, that's right. On the south, there's a lot of trees.
Yeah. And we're trying to be really respectful to those residents that are existing in that subdivision, and that's why the building is oriented the way it is, because it actually gives them the least amount of building
Profile.
front that faces them. And then we added a lot of screening material. Since it's their backyards, they already have screening material. We're trying to augment that with the additional evergreens that we put back there.
And speaking of the neighbors back there, what's roughly their finished floor elevation versus your finished floor elevation?
It varies. It's as you pull in, they're slightly, because they're working with the grade, because the grade's doing the same thing on their property as with ours. So where we're driving down, their units are stepping down. So about where the building is, they're kind of at grade, maybe a little higher, but not substantially higher. But as you get further closer to West Side, the grades themselves drop off significantly.
Okay. And then tell us a little bit about, so there are 8 units in this building, 8 condo units. How many are on the first floor? Because it looks like I see some either exit doors or patio doors or
I'm
something.
gonna let the architect get into that, 'cause I don't
Okay.
specifically have the details on that,
All right.
so.
So on the shade question, on the
Yes, sir.
north and south, there, you have, and I'm not familiar with all these plants, ruby fringe flower,
Yep.
tea olive, and Distilium. Are those shade tolerant?
They're
plants
shade
then?
tolerant. They can go partial shade to full sun, not full shade. And I don't think they're gonna get full shade in most cases. But they are, we tried to be specific with the microclimate. Now, as we build in and see what's actually happening, we might make some adjustments to the landscape plan, seeing how the actual tree shading and areas lay out.
I think some of the cold weather, the very, very cold weather that we just had, I lost my tea olives.
I didn't
They're
lose
down.
mine, but they definitely defoliated and they're coming back slow.
Boy, but yeah, I think there's a little green on maybe just here and there.
Yep,
So,
I'm with you.
Is there a walkway around the north end of the building? I don't see it here.
There's
but it-
not one. When
Okay.
the architect did his renderings before my grading plan was complete, and when we looked at it, there just was no way to make that work. And there really was no reason when you actually worked through the internal workings and the lobby space that kind of flows through the building. It was easier to access the back of the building through the lobby space and then the plaza areas down to the fire pit.
Because I saw those renderings and
Yeah.
they didn't match. And there was also, one of them showed an arch.
Yeah.
That, I mean, that's not in the plan. It doesn't
Right,
look like.
right.
Okay.
It was a dream. We could make the dream happen.
speaking of that, can you show us maybe on this plan or another plan where some retaining walls are or some walls?
Yes, there's,
And what they're, are made of?
the retaining walls are gonna be brick to match. They're brick cladded to match the building. So we're
Okay.
trying to kind of nestle all of that together. You've got the walls to the back that are.
All right, do you have a pointer or anything that you can kind of,
Let me go to a different,
okay?
I think I can when I'm in this. Yeah, there we go. I think you can see my.
All right, yes, we can
All
see
right.
your pointer.
So we do have a retaining wall that is here, that is going to kind of hold the top of this building down and then come up through this. And that is going to be facing the city's property. And that's going to be brick clad, concrete cantilever wall.
And roughly how tall is that?
Anywhere from 0 to about 9 feet,
Okay, and where would the 9 feet?
closer
portion
to the
be?
building, like in this area.
Okay, but
And
but
then
again,
it blends back down.
again, the city is looking at that.
Correct.
Is looking at the brick portion of that.
Correct.
Okay.
This wall is here, and that's kind of the ramp wall, so that's gonna be facing the internal driveway. Again, it's gonna be brick cladded for the concrete. We do have a retaining wall here that's going to be facing these residents, but this really is just minor. It's 4, 5, 6 feet. And then it goes away in the area of this tree, because we're trying to preserve the tree, so we tie it back to the building, let the building actually do the grade change through here, and then it picks back up past that tree and ties into the plaza space, which ranges anywhere from 0 to 8 feet of walls to help terrace our way down to the lawn area.
So if we looked at that terraced area, the patio terraced area, you've got I call it the main patio that comes off the building in the center there. That's probably at finished floor elevation, right?
Correct.
And then you step down.
Right.
I guess you come out, you're to the left, you're stepping down.
And this slopes up, so it tries to minimize, and then what that does is when you're in the lawn area, it helps create a nice palette to see the layering of the plant material and gives it some elegance and works its way down the slope with that.
So then the fire pit, for instance, is below
Yes.
how far, I mean,
Um,
is it 5 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet?
6,
Six,
about
okay.
6 feet.
All right,
Again, trying to work with the natural grade, because what I was trying to do is get the fire pit at as close to natural grade as I could there, so that I could have a nice walkway, like 2x2 pavers that takes me out to the lawn area and
And that's
works
what you're
in and around the existing trees.
okay.
Yep.
And then the fire pit area, that's pavers of some sort, or is it?
We hadn't gotten to that level of detail. Again, we gotta still price this thing, but right now we were proposing concrete with some scoring at this point.
All right. Okay, I know we've kind of gone from landscape back to some hardscape, I guess.
Yeah.
Any landscape items?
I just want to clarify, all the retaining walls are clad with
Yes.
brick to match the building.
Correct.
including the one facing the other
As
residence?
tight as this site is, there was no way to do a modular block or some other, I just don't have room for grid, I don't have room for the other
Wow.
pieces of it, so.
So it's
Brick clad
basically,
probably look better anyway.
What's that?
Brick clad looks better anyway.
I agree, it does.
so it's
And
basically a
more-
poured-in-place concrete wall with.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
keep it straight up and down. Very good.
Steve, where you have those walls around the pool deck and that side of the building that abuts the neighbors,
Mhm.
you have plantings above and below?
Mainly below. Above, I don't have, now, we could add planters in the pool area, but we, again, haven't gotten to that level of detail on this. But yeah, it's mainly below to help screen the wall and add screening for the neighbors.
Yeah, and I guess we've been talking about retaining walls, but there are other walls, right? And they're all brick?
Yes.
Every wall on this, it's all brick to match the, okay. Fire pit details on that at this point, or no?
I have not. There's a lot of options we can look at. Again, the architect and I, we kind of raced to get this in, and we haven't had a chance to talk about it. And we figured we'd get through this, and if we needed to add more detail, we could kind of go through that with you.
And Steve, is there any site lighting happening?
There will be. We haven't gotten to that. We'll have to come back for that. We just don't have, there's not a lot of opportunity for site lighting, but we know we've got to, have a 0-foot candle spill over, especially to the residents to the south.
Okay, and then, thinking of anything else that happens on the outside of a building, how about, air conditioning, condensing units?
I'll get with Greg, but I think they may be on the roof.
We'll get to it when we see
Yeah.
they are.
Okay.
Okay, good, just checking, just kind of double checking, all right.
Steve, will there be more said about specific landscape planting? Or is this a time that I could bring up an observation to you?
Oh, no, definitely bring it up.
All right. It's fun to see that you have a good variety of seasonal perennials and grasses. That's going to make it fun for the residents. And the key there with some of your grasses will be not to cut them down too soon, but to allow them to be seen through the winter. It's also exciting to see the rising sun redbud.
I love them.
We don't see enough of that tree.
Yep.
We don't want to cover the world with it, but we want to use it more.
Right.
So that'll be fun for the residents to look out to the west and see that tree. There's a spot where you have 2 southern magnolias on the edge of the lawn.
Okay, yes.
It looks like they could use some more friends and perhaps create an edge along that line.
Okay.
So that would be worth taking a look at. And and also it's wonderful to see that you have the black gums there to add that great color
Right.
on the south end. So that's the end of my comments.
Okay.
Um,
And the
Steve-
magnolias were mainly for screening, trying to help protect that road noise.
Yeah, but just having 2 of them by themselves,
Add a third.
it would be, or even a row of that.
Right. Okay.
Instead of the cedar.
Got it.
They might be more substantial than the cedar would be.
Okay.
And they would give you a clean line there that would be consistent on the edge of the lawn,
Right.
because there's not, you're going to be seeing plenty of the building, so it's not as if you need more exposure.
Right, right.
Okay.
Steve, could you take your pointer and identify where those 2 magnolias are that Mr. Owens, right? Okay.
Right here.
So Richard, you're would like to see some more magnolias along there?
Yes, when any tree is used, if, they look kind of lonely there. And it would make a more.
I agree. They may be better to use magnolias than the cryptomerias long term.
Yeah. Mhm.
And they're
Yeah.
more, they're native versus.
Yes.
versus
Mhm.
Okay, very good.
introduced. So I'd be fine with switching out the crypts for mags.
Okay.
One
Mr.
question, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, Mr. Chairman, I had a question for Steve. Is there a plan to put an entry sign or anything up the,
I think we would
Temple
just have an
Bridge.
address sign. I don't think we're gonna have a named building like you
Okay.
might see in Buckhead or something. It's really we're trying to just be subtle and subtle elegance
Okay.
is the idea.
Okay.
In the material package, you've got several photos of a stone seat wall. Would that be brick as well, and would there be any kind of like cap on it or precast?
I think Gray and I have got to get together on that, and
Okay.
where he's thinking of those. And again, we kind of worked a little bit of different locations, so we've got to come together. But there may be some areas we can put in a brick seat wall along parts of this. to
But
make
the
sense.
material would be brick,
Yeah,
not stone.
and coordinate the material, yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Steve?
Are you looking for landscape approval today?
Uh,
We're missing a lot on
My
hardscape.
big thing I need is site plan approval to be able to keep moving with my civil plans. I realize there's some hardscape decisions that Gray and I have got to go through. Landscape, I think it's very integrated with the hardscape, so if we defer to that, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I mean, you do show some very good, some of the stone seat wall and cut stone steps and all that. I mean, that's very,
We'll talk about that a little bit with the bill.
Yeah.
because We are gonna have some of that detail added.
okay, all right, very
Yeah, I mean,
good.
most of the hardscape is only visible from in fact, all the hardscape is probably only visible from within the site.
Right,
Correct.
Right, so similar to the last applicant,
it's not a, it's
you
not
know,
a
it's something,
public-
rather than having them come back on it.
It's, yes, so this is a little bit, of new world time for you guys, you know, that we're getting into so much more of this residential,
Yeah.
private development stuff. So I think we can, on those types of things, I think we can leave a little bit more to them, you know, and let them make those decisions. It's more gonna be the building, the landscape appropriateness, the amount, you know, the stuff like that.
Yeah,
I was just thinking we'd do same as the last one, just have them submit it to staff, or just to make sure nothing crazy happens. I mean, I don't think
Yeah.
anything would, but just to make sure, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
we're,
we'll definitely through the LDP process and things like that, we'll definitely look at
Yeah.
all of that stuff, but I don't know that we need to focus on it so much as we do on a commercial site where we're in a
Public traffic, yeah.
So,
okay.
yeah. So it seems like on this one, there's enough here. We have all the
think so.
details on landscaping. We're just missing some hardscape, the
Right.
fire pit and things like that, that we could leave to staff for. That way you don't have to come back again.
Right.
'Cause
I
think you're-
appreciate that.
I think you're 90%, so.
Looking at some of the like the cut stone wall has some sort of ornamental fence with it, for instance. So is this site gonna be fenced in, or is I guess the pool will be fenced
The
in?
pool will have to be fenced in, so
Right.
we're gonna use the ornamental fence on the pool itself.
Okay, any other fencing areas?
I'm not
that-
anticipating any other fencing.
Okay.
And now, if a need arises where we've got people wandering in from West Side, and that may come up later, but right now, we're not anticipating that.
Have you selected the fence? What you're gonna
I
use
believe
for
Gray's
fence?
got that
Does he?
in
Okay.
All right, very
in his
good.
materials, yes.
Okay, all right, anything else for civil site, hardscape? All right, very good. Okay, let's hear from the architect on the exterior elevations and materials.
Let's see, Steve, is this? Okay, and that's, everything's on here. that was-
Building elevations first.
Okay. Hey there, how you doing? I'm Gray Reese, the architect, at 244 13th Street, Midtown, Atlanta.
Welcome to Alpharetta.
Oh, yeah, we're out here. We also work out of Bicknell, Georgia, too, so we have two offices, so. I'm going to go through, there's a couple of things we had submitted. We had a few early comments, and we had submitted a secondary package that I'm not sure if it made it here, but I have some work can I use this if we, in relation to the chimneys and some things like that, we had updated
yeah.
those. And I don't know what you all got. Did you get the material
I
book?
think that's the second set of,
I mean, is it up here? I don't know if it's on the screen here, or how I can see it.
seeing what you're seeing.
Okay, so I've got a book I may put underneath here if we want to talk about some of those details.
Yeah, let's go through the overall building.
Okay.
Exterior elevations of the building, or the most recent ones, so that we're familiar with.
Yeah,
it,
and
we can,
like I say, I sent it in, but I may not have the black and white, so I don't know if that's important. Just get to. Let's go the other way. Okay. Okay, so I'm just looking at the overall, so you can see the overall shot. Okay, So that does give you a little bit of an aerial view. What we're trying to do with this is, it's really kind of an understated, traditional, turn-of-the-century style building. One of the characteristics of a lot of our work is that we want this thing to feel not like a new trendy building, but we want it to really feel like it's been there, you know, that it's not built yesterday. The clients that we have, the buyers that are interested, these are big units. They're almost 3,000 feet, and we feel like they're going to be coming from very traditional homes and large homes to downsize into something like this. So that kind of is the background for how it looks. Of course, that's the front elevation. That's at the entry. It's flanked by large porches on all four corners to, you know, for open air. There are 3 units on each floor, so I don't know if that makes it.
So there's 9 units.
Well, there's 2 on the top. I'm sorry, the 2.
Oh,
are
I see,
large
okay.
units. There's
So
3 on the first 2
3,
floors.
3, and 2.
Yes,
Okay.
and then 2 on the other. Of course, that's just the end condition. And again, we try to keep it very simple. Again, just, you know, to be less trendy. This shows what I think we were talking about with the garage and how you enter at the top. This was an alternate plan that we had for this. And we, you know, I don't know how flexible we are with possibly going back to this center piece, which is different than what we have documented in the site plan. But either one, I mean, this is what we have now. Yeah, and I think I just wanted you to know that's why it was, okay, it'll be this one.
Oh, so, okay.
Okay.
So there's not a turner, there's not a.
Oh, because,
kind
yeah,
of a-
you're right. because
Kind of
we
a
got-
cul-de-sac or
Yeah.
a loop.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So
So
that
I
island-
I wanted to explain why it looked like that before.
So,
Okay.
okay,
Island's not there.
yeah.
Okay.
So it'll be like the site plan. I think there was a question about the gate that we show. One thing that, again, in working with Steve back and forth, we were just, in the quickness of this, we would like to possibly have a walkway here, which would be where the fence would be at the top of this wall.
All right,
So
we're
it's
not-
possible that we might have a walk along that way.
Greg, we're not seeing your pointer where you were
Oh,
identifying
is that
that.
not showing?
No, it doesn't, in your presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry. How do you do that?
Now you're pointing.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there we go. All
I'm
right.
sorry. Yeah, along this walk where, you know, I think there was a question about why we were showing a gate. So it's possible, we've got another building like this similar in Roswell. People like to walk around the building because it's really going to be set like a botanical garden. I mean, this is, and it's almost like a private residence with 8 people in it. So it is very intimate. So the point being that we may end up with a path. We'd like to have a path along this walk. And that's where we would have the fence, of course, and then we'd have the gate, which would enter into the back garden. I think that was brought up, so that I just wanted to address that. I think it's this image here. So you see, the idea would be that the walk came along and then you had a gate that, and this continues around. And I'll go back to the site plan, but we want to walk around the whole building because from the pool to that garden, we'll have a path. So those 2 outdoor spaces connect. We tried to set the building back on both ends because we've got those smaller units at top, and it's 2 units, so that helps, you know, with the height feel of the building, I think, on the end conditions. And that's just the other, I think we already looked at that. We were out, I just sent this to Steve just yesterday, we were out looking at some of the stone at a market, so this flagstone that you see here is what we really like to have on the back patio as a surface. And then, of course, you know, this would be where you see stone at the base. And around the pool and some of these site walls, we're probably going to mix that up and have stone and brick. We want, you know, to minimize it being a big brick box. Now, can I go through this? Can I put these? But I think you had this.
All right, hang on a minute. We got to flip some switches here. There we go. And you may have to bring it in focus.
Showing the screen, or can you see it?
Yeah, we can
It's
we
just
can
out
see
of
it on-
focus right now. There's an autofocus button he said on there. So.
Yeah, it's just important because this is a lot of the detail.
There you go.
Okay. So in your packet, or Brett has, somewhere you've got some perspective drawings that show the chimneys. We extended them up so that they show in perspective. And this is the detail I believe he was talking about.
Yeah.
And then this is, we'll have samples of the windows, but all of our windows are casement, aluminum clad windows with, wood interior. Like I said, we have samples. This is a piece of the gate that you see outside, and some of the ornamental rails around the pool. It was a pretty heavy duty iron rail. We also can do that out of aluminum, which we might do, but we'll submit samples of all of that. This picture shows the garage door. It's a glass door that we've used on other buildings for that drive to get light in there. We like to keep light in. And we'll actually have light wells in that garage. I don't know how to point those to you, but where we recess down from punch windows. So we keep that.
Yeah, I was looking at your layout, trying to think, would you be able to see into that garage from the street, and what would you see?
Oh, wow.
It looks like it's down.
Graded drive.
Yeah, it does. I concluded I didn't think you could see in there, but
No, the garage is, it's a community place. People spend time there. We have storage there. It's the resident, that's how they get to it. I mean, they all come into the garage.
yeah, is the glass going to be clear tinted?
We've done clear. We just frosted one, so we may frost it. There's a little bit of a security thing that we like about clear.
Yeah.
Because you can see if somebody's out, or you can see, people kind of feel comfortable not having a solid door that rolls up to somebody's. In this area, I think we're in a better position to not really worry about that. The front door we'd like to do is, we're probably gonna do something different, which is a steel entry door that would be just at that porch. I know it didn't show in the elevation much, but.
Can you slide that, let's see, on the overhead? There you go.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's the only place we kind of do a little different piece at the entry. Because what happens in a building like this, that entry is 24/7, so that's always lit at night. It's not like a house where someone may turn off the light, so you can always see through, and we'll come back through it. This, as Steve was mentioning, this is the feel that we want the landscape to have. I mean, we have cut stone steps. We'd like to do brick pavers, maybe a mix of stone and brick. I've got some slate here that I showed you in another picture. So it's really going to be the town feel back there, for the restaurant. And of course, that's just that's just sample outside the seating. What happens here is once we have an association established, there will be control of what goes outside the building. It's not people aren't putting their own. We even try to control what goes in the balconies. So it's not random. This is just some sample lighting pieces. This is all, I guess this would be around the pool where we might have lighting pilasters, I think they show. All the lighting is as dim as they will let us have. It's all down lighting. To light the ground. We're not going to uplight the building necessarily or anything like that. It's just all to move around, in a dark. And then, of course, we have some fans, like this dark fans on the balconies. This gets into the color. One of the comments that we got back, and we revised that, when you get the if you got those revisions, but this concrete cornice, one of the comments was to lighten that, so we did that. And I think I'll have to go back over there. So that's the only thing that's different, there's a difference in this what we submitted. And then that's just a basic window showing the cut. And I can pull a few of these pieces out if you want to see.
Yeah, why don't you just, looks like you've got a sample of the brick, just to
And
kind
we're
of,
looking at there. Now, what happens, we will probably have 6 samples of brick out there on the site to decide exactly. It's going to be this color range. We always debate the more the color. We like the darker. We have but we'll be out there with sample walls, which anybody, the city, y'all are welcome to come look at as well. I don't know how much you.
that'll be our field trip.
For final approval, that's just shows the piece.
I'll tell you what, maybe you can hold those up a little higher, and then we can all,
Yeah, Steve.
Steve's going to be your,
You can pass that around.
or maybe, yeah, just pass the color sample board around for us, Steve. That'll be good.
This is those precast pieces that are horizontal. Oh, yeah. Here's the columns they go like that.
That's precast.
This is the mud, we're very strict about our windows. It's gonna be, wood on the inside, metal. This is the slate pieces that we talked about, for the floor.
Yeah, that's it.
We were out yesterday looking, we like this, it's got up in Georgia's got some of the sparkle pieces that we might accent.
A little bit of mica in it or
Little
something.
mica, Yeah, that's what that photo is.
For the hardscape.
For some of the hardscape, some of the garden
Okay.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
maybe the pocket.
Right. Yep.
I think that's everything. Again, we try to keep the pieces simple on the exterior, and the color palette. We like this palette right now. Of course, there's always debate. in real estate.
Gray,
Everything seems to
if
be-
you'll speak into the microphone, please, thank you, or you'll get a little closer. Thank you.
Yeah, everything right now.
Is it working?
Sorry.
All right.
Yes, it's this one. I guess what we're trying, everything is really trending and trendy toward the white and light and beige. So we're kind of coming back to a little bit more of a traditional piece. But for the board, I don't know if there's a flexibility. We might want to come back and look at color, I just don't know what the flexibility level is of, reviewing that again.
I think these are very elegant, very nice. I think if you're staying in this family, I don't see you coming back to this board, for instance, but if you're going to change to, a pink or an orange brick or something like that, that's something else, but,
As the real estate people look at it, sometimes they ask, can we whitewash it a little, or can we lighten it? So there may be, but we also have people that are making reservations for these things. So we're kind of letting the buyers dictate.
now, if you're planning to paint the brick, you're going to have to come back to it.
No, I don't think
to do
we'll
something.
be doing that.
Okay,
But we'd come back. I just want to make sure that we have the option or a process.
right.
Something.
Okay, no, that's good. Why don't you, I'll tell you what, let's take maybe the front elevation of the building and just kind of quickly go through us to show us the materials that you presented
Yeah,
to us
and-
and kind of where those
okay.
go. Just bring one of those elevations up.
Is that,
There you go, perfect.
is that?
Yes,
Okay.
okay.
So let's walk through.
So let's start from the ground to the bottom, maybe the cut stone or the stack stone
Okay.
up to the top.
Okay, so yes, this stone that I've been showing you, there's not a huge band of stone. A lot of that's going to occur on that back patio and garden. But what I'm showing you is what we'd like to do. You see the horizontal, when you get up, what's colored cementitious cornice. That's that color that we lightened to the light color.
Okay, so that's the one.
And that's that piece, right? that-
Teresa
that
got her-
Teresa had, yeah.
She's got her
that
finger
piece.
on there. I
Okay.
think.
very
Okay,
good.
so
That does work nicely.
Yes, yeah, that was one of the comments back, and we liked it, given it, so that horizontal reads a little better. It used to be dark, it was dark to match the brick, so. Then the brick is pretty simple, that's what you're seeing. There is gonna be a level of brick detail at the cornice line, which the black and white drawings show a little bit better, but you can see there how we step out. So a combination of soldier courses and running bar.
That's at your parapet. or
At the
your-
parapet, to form
okay.
that parapet. We're gonna have that all the way around.
Yeah, I could kind of see at the parapet 2 soldier courses, and then above the windows, there's a soldier course.
We have a vertical soldier above the window, and if you look in that material, we'd like to do that stone seal at the
Well,
window.
I like the stone seal. Maybe there's a way, is there a way to do a stone header up there?
We can show you images of it. It gets to, what we don't, we just like it to be subtle. It gets to be too splotchy for us.
The rear elevation, or the rear rendering actually shows stone headers, and
There you go.
I thought
what
that,
is? Well, it's lighter, but
Right.
we didn't want it to be actual stone. And
Oh,
that
gotcha.
picture is where we thought it might have been this stuff, the cast, but
Yeah,
Right
it's
now,
kinda
I
gives
think
it-
we'd like for it to be brick, but we're open. I mean, that is more subtle there. We just don't want to put rock. We don't
Right.
want to have a vertical rock header up there. Mainly because rock headers we usually like to use as arches and not,
Yeah.
because they really don't work as much as a
I
lintel.
think the cast stone on the top and cut stone on the bottom is
Yeah, that's
a
very,
good look.
yeah.
That may be where we end up, and because we like punch, one of the last things we did in these renders was punch up this taupe color for these horizontal.
So, quickly tell us, with 3 residents on the ground floor, or 3 units on the ground floor, I guess the 2 end units get the outdoor kind of balcony or patio area? And
What we
then-
have, and we're actually, here's what we have. There's 2 on one end, and the big unit's on the other end, okay? So the large unit is on this garden side.
Oh, I see how you're, okay.
And it's like 2 and 1. And
Got it.
Works out pretty nice. We're hesitant to put our plans out because we're, marketing, but we do have it. It's completely laid out. Now, the 2 units upstairs, we're still working on, but there's going to be 2 units which have access to the outside terrace on both ends. Because, you see the building steps back here at the end. So one person will have that whole wraparound to end.
And I noticed one of those wings, if you call that wings, is larger than the other wing on the other side of the building. Because
it
because
is larger.
works with the garage.
It works with the garage. This rendering stretches it more than it's really going to be, I think. See, I have an updated version that shows you that this pushed out. And I can either send it or make sure you got it, but it does show it. See, this one's not showing it, but we have it stretched in the building.
So is above the entry porch on the 2nd floor, is that a walkout patio area? No, in the middle of the building.
Oh, here?
Yes.
It can be. Now, in our sister building to this, they have made it, so.
Because I see, it looks like there's some sort of railing at the top
It
of
is.
the.
We'd like to make it, we want to do it because that's at the public space. That's the
Okay, but
core.
on the other rendering, or it doesn't show that kind of picket fence or that railing.
Let's see, up here.
Yes. or-
See, it even shows, well, we
Shows
would,
some plans.
I can't zoom this, but see, that's got plants up there too. so-
Right,
So we will have a rail. We'll have a rail there
Okay.
to match.
all right.
And since we've done this, we've talked about it, that'd be a nice amenity to have that balcony out there off
Okay.
of the elevator lobby.
And then looks like you have raised the chimneys up higher.
We did. This raises them up, and we have a rendering floating. I can send all this to you when we leave.
Well-
Brett, do you have it? If you don't have it,
Well, we were just looking at what Steve had some site
Yeah,
line
he did
studies.
sites.
Oh, you're not gonna see any rooftop units, and it's like, well, you may not even see the brick chimneys
We can-
either, so.
Yeah, we gotta get out there. We can raise them. And
Okay.
listen, these chimneys, just so you know, they're gonna be there because they have other things on them. They're vent stacks and
Yeah.
such for the units. I mean, we duct, sometimes they're intake air, so they're kind of fake chimneys.
And how many chimneys do you?
4. There's
4.
We're gonna need 4 because of the elements that we
I
have.
like the way you detailed them. They're very decorative, so it'd be nice if you could
We're
see
gonna make them
them.
nice. I wanna be able to see them. And the
Yeah.
good thing is, I think we're looking down, as we come into the building, that's where we're really pricing out
Right.
from the other side, the lower side.
They're set back a bit though, so you might have to raise them in order to be able to see them. They're really good looking.
We
The
can-
detail
we can
on them
push
are
them
really
out.
nice.
We can push, because we
Oh,
have the
really?
flexibility to, we can move, because they're not tied to a fireplace. We have fireplaces, but they're ventless.
Yeah, I think it's a nice design feature. You want to be able to see it.
Yeah, I think we just move them around until we make sure. And, when we're in the office, we can look at 3D. But I think you'll definitely, as you come into the drive, on that approach, you'll see.
Are there any, vents, like for the units, like dryer vents or?
We try to go vertical.
Okay.
With everything. If we do, I'll tell you where they'll be. They're always in the balconies.
It's gonna be tough if you're on the first floor trying to get vertical with a dryer
Well,
vent. You wanna get up and go horizontal as quickly as you can.
We go both ways. We have to has to be a different dryer, but we'll probably do them on these porches.
Like, so they're
Tucked up.
screened by the balcony piece?
Like up in the wall of the porch. If we're lucky, sometimes we'll do it and it will be actually in the ceiling. So you do, it works nice in the wintertime because you got a dryer. Paper flowing. I mean, it really does work like that. But most of the vent stacks, all the plumbing stuff goes up.
Is there any other articulation in the brick other than what we've discussed? It's hard to tell from these. It looks like they're like I see a line between the first and
There's no way
second
to
floor
pull those
windows.
black and white ones that we sent. Yeah, we have black and white prints that are architectural plans, but I don't know.
Okay,
One thing,
we do?
Yeah, if you've got them, yeah, let's see. Because that'll answer a lot of the questions.
with respect to some of the, some of this type of articulation,
Yeah, you'll be able to see, there you go. Okay, can y'all see that?
yeah.
Yeah, we don't have that in our package.
So how proud are some of these soldier course bands? Because, sometimes they look great on elevations, but the building in reality becomes very flat. Are they, half inch, an inch out, or?
They're as far, yeah, we'll pull them, I mean,
Yeah.
we'd like to be half a brick sometimes, but it'll be a
Yeah,
third of a brick.
so you could get a nice shadow line.
Yeah, we'll bring them, we want that as much as anybody else, I mean. I can send examples of buildings we built that with it, in Savannah, we've got 2 of these, so.
Especially with these headers that we've been discussing, it's an important feature, even if it's very subtle, but if it's the same color brick and it's pretty flat, it could get really lost and
I kind of like the
disappear.
idea of doing this, I kind of like the idea of this precast
I
over,
like it too.
if y'all are okay, because that's easy for us to do.
Yes.
We just order those pieces. So I kind of like that. I think, if you want to make a note,
Yeah.
I think we're good with that.
I think
and
that's
even have
great.
the cut stone at the bottom and have the horizontal piece. That's good. Do you happen to have those renderings that show the fireplace in that? Yeah. Yeah, let's
Yeah,
look
we
at
had
that,
the-
because that shows.
The rear side shows it. I thought that looked good.
Yeah, you had the herringbone pattern in the fireplace too, I think.
Greg, it's fitting that we see this.
No, this was like a rendering, but okay, I guess it may be.
There's the, no, there's,
No, the actual rendering, where we updated the rendering to show. It would be with those black and white ones, wherever that one.
No, it does.
Is there more stuff there? Okay, keep going. Because I just didn't see the black and white. The black and whites are in here?
Are we gonna do another substantial?
Oh, yeah. Well, what we try to do is show them.
see how they feel.
Is that all? Doesn't have to- okay. Well, I can send it. But anyway, you see that we've got architectural drawings of it showing a lot of these details. And hopefully y'all can get that.
On this one now, maybe.
Greg, before the meeting started, we had a review from the city of Alpharetta architect who reviewed numerous classical styles. This one, your building here the composition is nicely stated
Okay.
without using details simply to throw them on there. It's a nice,
So they were okay. I thought you were.
no. This is fitting for us to see something that works so nicely with that classical statement.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. And people, the clientele and the buyers, it's warm to them because they're coming out of very traditional homes and big houses.
Yeah.
It's not necessary. The idea that they have gardens around them that are there, to meander into. And you're going to have, you move in here and, it's like 8 of your best friends. I mean, you're going to know each other. And there's people that will move here to get, some people will be friends that buy these and both live there. So anyway, hopefully that's.
Is there anything else, we talked a little bit about condensing units and things for the residents. What else is on the roof and where is that going to be located?
There's not anything up there but what we call a air-conditioned farm, condensing farm.
Okay.
Which is the
And
series of 8, it's only 8 of them. So,
8 big ones.
yeah, I mean, the bigger units probably will have 2 smaller. We may break it up so they can have control. The last of these buildings we did, which we wish we could do here, was geothermal, which meant we had none of them. It's a
probably-
big site. I mean, we could do it.
I don't know that you're going to do geothermal.
Well, we did it in Roswell. We have it in our Roswell
Okay.
project. And
But-
the wells are underneath the building.
But if we're looking at, I'm just thinking about, we're looking at the brick chimneys,
Mm-hmm.
okay? I think if there's a condensing unit farm up there, we got to see something that will be screening them.
Well, that parapet's about 3 feet. Let's see, does it have, see that dimension over there? I don't have it on my.
3 feet.
So the parapet itself is 3. So you may see at 4 feet at best, and it's set back in the middle of the building. So
We had the,
it's shown on one of these.
There was a kind of an aerial drone.
Yeah.
But, go back,
there's the aerial in the
Okay.
center, but I'm gonna go back, there's recycling.
okay.
Okay, yeah.
And what's
I
the,
can't see it.
what's the access to get to those? Say,
Oh, that stair's gonna go up to a hatch, our main stair.
so you'll have a roof hatch?
Oh,
then?
yeah, we have to
Okay.
have a
You won't have the, okay, you won't have another, you won't have the stair going all the way up to the roof. It's
They
a
have
hatch.
told us here we don't have to. If we have a complete full stair up, in other words, it can't be a ladder. It's gonna be our stair or go, but then they'll let us have the hatch.
Okay.
So it won't project above the roof line? It will not project above?
No, it's, 3 feet, you should be able to step out on the roof. It's gonna be up about a foot.
Yes, I
To keep
understand
the
that.
water from,
Then how about your elevator?
because we use a machineless elevator, they're telling, it shouldn't be more than 3. Do you think it'll be?
Like 5 feet typically, at least?
If
So-
it's 5, it may,
Yeah.
and we can edit this to show, we haven't,
Just want to make sure we're not seeing some of the,
but we're not gonna have individual pipe and a bunch of stuff like
Yeah.
that. If anyone wants, we have very similar building to this in Roswell, in historic Roswell, called Vickery.
okay.
You're welcome to go, because you can see everything we're talking about there.
Can we
It's-
take a Google tour of that? Is there a way to look at that from Google?
He could go to, it's got a real estate.
Take
site
us on a
called
virtual
Vickery-
field, a
Vickery
virtual field trip.
Falls. Yeah, go to Vickery Falls and you can see, now the building looks different because it's cantilever balconies and still windows, but
Vickery
the
Falls,
roof, you
okay.
can see everything about the roof. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so that's, can you all see that? I guess you can.
Yes, okay.
Okay. Now, that has a penthouse unit that we don't have here. We couldn't get that. We didn't want to go for a variance. In Roswell, we got a variance for that penthouse unit. But because that is a total terrace up there, there's nothing popping through. And this is the one that's geothermal, so there's no condensing units. It's a very peaceful place because there's no noise. But that's a real-life picture, I think. Can you go to the photos?
And that's very interesting because like the headers over the windows that we were talking about, you've got several courses of recessed brick that make it, help me.
And there's
pop it
like
out.
almost a
Give it-
panel in between the
Yeah,
windows,
yeah.
a brick.
Yeah,
The windows are set back
A
a
little
bit.
more articulation.
yeah, even above the third floor windows, you've got that recessed area too, so. That one elevation that you had, that we were looking at was the one exterior elevation.
That shows the roof up there.
Yeah, no.
Nothing on it, but I guess the reason I'm saying that is because we have to do a lot to get things zigzagged away, through the middle. But anyway, but you can see that online. It gives you an
There,
idea of the
just
detail.
stay right there, that's,
It's a lot more detailed.
yeah.
That was a factory kind of concept with the vertical pieces. This is a more elevated style that we did not want to do the vertical pieces because this is more loft style. And that's not the look we're going for. We're going for a more formal, elegant piece that it's very different from this, from what we're doing here.
So then, for instance, looking at the windows, the Alpharetta windows versus the Roswell windows.
Totally different. We're going to do a punch casement.
Okay,
Because it's more traditional, it's more in style. The concept over here was a factory loft
Okay.
because of the
All right.
village and because of the fact that I guess there was a factory, cotton mill there or something. This is what we want, a very different look here.
Okay.
And people, as much as, those cantilever balconies, some people like them, some people don't. We really like this enclosed. Older people and people coming out of homes are not used to a cantilever. They want a balcony or porch like they used to have.
Well,
These
that
are
would be a little more private.
Yeah, much more
private and elegant,
Much more
yeah.
private. This is a younger group over there. That's they're kids, but rich kids. They're expensive kids. But
Yeah, I think if we do the headers in that cast stone, material that brings another element, different color, and adds a little bit of flair and elegance.
It's subtle, yeah, it's not just, we just don't want it to be big, bright. And we'll play with this color. I mean, what we'll do, and we'll invite anybody to come see, is a mock-up panel with the window in it. And we do a panel, and we pick the color of the brick, and we look at all that before we do it on every window. So,
And the railings on the building are gonna be just sort of the typical double rail at the top, aluminum.
like that gate picture is what we're going for.
Oh, like
See that gate style, as much as possible, it may have those circles.
Oh.
We'll submit that. I mean,
That would be a
it takes a long time to get a rail, because we have to price it so many times with different people. We like an aluminum rail that looks like an iron rail, because we don't want to,
Lower
the maintenance. But,
Okay, and all the brick, except for the soldier courses, everything else is just running bond.
yeah, but it's gonna be, we want to use Queen. I may not mention that. It's a
You did.
bigger brick, because it's a bigger building.
A little larger size brick then.
Yeah. And you're going, based on that, it looks like you're going for a contrasting mortar from the brick. Yeah, that might be too much, yeah.
That's why we had to do the door.
Yeah. Oh, I see, you did a light and a dark, okay.
It's amazing how quickly the mortar colors change your,
Changes the whole look.
oh, it does.
I think a little bit of contrast.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere in between there, I think.
I mean, we could play all day, we keep this, we'll go.
It seems like some contrast, somewhere between those would be good, right? It's, because the dark one, everything just blends together, it looks like a big red wall, right? Yeah, that's. Yeah, something like that would probably be, yeah.
But we'll go through it a lot. By anybody, see that makes it makes a big difference. It changes the whole, and that's why we have to look at that to see it. And we may pick up a little bit of stone color, could be brownish, dark brownish.
Okay, any other?
Quick question, Greg, can you talk a little bit about the column material? It's listed as a fiberglass reinforced column. Is that, what's the appearance, is it gonna look more
We can
like?
get that finish.
Okay, so,
It'll match that.
so it won't be a shiny
No.
gloss?
It won't be.
Okay,
I don't know if you heard, we do the mansion in Savannah.
okay.
First place we use, but it'll,
So it'll look more like a stone column then?
what we try to do is texture it in the house, so they feel like
Yeah,
not common.
yeah, okay.
I think we're pretty good. I think, let me ask for public comment. Okay. All right, any other questions or comments for Gray this morning? And I'll ask for public comment. Any public comment about this application this morning? All right, no public comment. All right, do we want to start crafting some motions or?
Yeah, I'm just, before we get it, Brad, how do you want to handle the elevation of materials here? There's a lot still to be determined. I mean, I like what I saw.
Yeah,
In
and
the general direction you're going, so conceptually it all looks great, but there's a lot of specifics that still need to be selected, including the brick of the building, right, which is.
one thing we've had in the past
Are you-
is, we've had it in Roswell, but they get the direction, and they even approve it in the field. But I don't know how you,
Well,
you know what I
Well,
mean?
that's
don't-
what I'm trying to figure out, do we
Yeah.
want to do substantially similar
I mean,
final approval by
you could-
staff
however
again
you
on
wanna
this?
do
I
it.
mean, I think we've covered the details, it's just sort of those final material selections, just to make sure they look very close to what we're talking about here. Okay.
Gray, our preference and what we usually do is here at this meeting, we make approvals and not have to do a field
No, that's
trip, for
perfect.
instance.
I mean,
I guess maybe we'd like to sometimes, but we don't do that.
Well, as long as you can get it written so that we are in the direction you want to see,
Yeah.
because, a year from now, pricing, a lot of stuff dictates exactly the piece that we get.
Usually we approve very specific materials, right? You come in, here's the brick, here's the mortar, here's the lights, here's the, right, at that level of detail.
Because you've already figured that out type thing, so.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's my brick rep, so, you know, we use that person. I could get that exact one if you.
Okay, well, let's start
All
with,
right.
so Mr. Chairman, regarding DRB 230035, Kimball Bridge condominiums, motion to approve the site plan as presented today.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Swing, a second by Ms. Rhodes. Questions or comments about the motion? Second. There being none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All opposed? No opposition. Motion passes 6-0. Okay, that's the site plan.
Yeah, let me do, while I'm on a roll here, let me do elevation of materials. Mr. Chairman, regarding same applicant, motion to approve the elevation of materials as presented with the following conditions. Materials will be substantially similar to those shown today. Materials and colors will be substantially similar to those shown today, with final approval by staff once the final selections have been made. The windows will have cast stone headers. There will be a railing over the entry porch. Applicant will attempt to make the chimneys more visible, and there will be nothing other than chimneys visible on the roof from the public right-of-way. And mortar will be of a somewhat contrasting color. Again, final approval by staff. And the motion?
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Swing, a second by Mr. LeCain. Comments, questions about the motion on the floor? There being none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All opposed, no opposition. Motion passes 6-0. Okay, we've got landscape and hardscape.
Yeah, the only thing I would say on, you want to do landscape and hardscape separately or together?
Well, if we can combine them, that's fine.
We got some conditions on hardscape. Do you want me to do it, or you want to?
Well,
I mean, it's the same thing on the hardscape materials, right? Hardscape materials, including the fire pit, the walls, the pavers, the patio. I think we're just going to say that that needs to be substantially similar to what was discussed today with final approval by staff, right? The landscape was okay, right? You didn't.
yeah.
I think they were going to
Yes,
change a little bit.
Steve heard the comments. The only thing substantial was
That's right, you
regarding
had
the
us
magnolias.
Swapping out the cryptum areas on the west side with some magnolias, right? Was the
Yeah,
yeah. Do you want me to just do that?
yeah, go for it, Frank.
All right. Mr. Chairman, regarding same applicant, motion to approve the landscape and hardscape as presented today with the following conditions. Applicant will swap out the cryptum areas on the west side of the building with magnolias. The hardscape details and materials will be submitted to staff for final approval, including the scored-colored concrete, the fountain, patio and walkway pavers, fire pit, walls, fences, and any other hardscape materials in the motion.
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. Swing, a second by Mr. LeCain. Any comments or questions on the motion? Frank, you're 3 for 3 on that one. Okay, there being no questions, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All opposed? No opposition. Motion passes 6-0. All right. Steve, Gray, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate it. All right. It's 11, 10, 55-ish. All right. There being no further applications and with no objections from fellow board members, this meeting is hereby adjourned.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
No, that was good. All good. Okay.